Why was the crucifixion necessary?
The crucifixion was necessary in order for God to be perfectly just and righteous, and as well as loving and compassionate. And what do I mean by that? If God simply forgives you for breaking the law, that means God is more loving than just. But if He punishes you for every infraction against His holy commands, then that means He's more just and holy than loving. So how can God be loving and just at the same time without compromising either one of those characteristics? Because if He simply forgives you for violating the law without demanding that the justice of the law be met, that means He's much more loving than holy. But if He punishes you for the slightest infraction against the law, that means He's much more just than loving. So how can God be both perfectly loving and just? The answer is found in the cross of Jesus Christ. Because at the cross, God's justice is satisfied and His love is perfectly displayed. And what do I mean? Now when you turn to God and ask Him to forgive you for your sins, God can forgive you without compromising the just demands of the law for punishment, because Christ took your punishment. Let me give you a very crude analogy, because it's not what Jesus did, but it's an analogy to help you understand my point. You go before a judge and you have a fine of $500. Now the judge in His mercy can pardon you. So He pardons your fine, but then what He does, He steps off His judgment seat, takes off His robe, and then He pays the fine for you. Because it turns out the judge was your father. So as a judge, He passed sentence, right? You owe this fine, but I pardon you. But as your father, He pays the debt of that fine in order to maintain the just demands of the law. That's what God did in the person of Jesus Christ. As judge, you are guilty of sin and therefore deserving of death. But as a father, I forgive you, and I, in the person of Jesus Christ, my Son, will pay the debt for you so that the demands of the law have not been compromised. That's why the cross. That's why the crucifixion.